Hello, ladies and gentlemen. As always, I'm your host, AirsoftAL, or Alex, as many of you might know me. And, believe when I say that I have had a interesting experience, more or less, especially with Mark from Bushwookie Airsoft. Mark was actually kind of a cool dude and told me, hey, you should write this idea I've had for a Fallout event to pen and paper. Well, for those of you who've known me for a good long while, you know that I am not a good writer, I am more of a speaker. So in this case, I'm going to be speaking to you today about my event, which, if Mark wants to collaborate on it, I'd be more than honored to do so, which of course is something I've hinted at back in the day. This is War for Sector 9, or the alternative name, if Mark wants to collaborate on this, Atomic Cell 2 Blues Highway. And yes, I did that at suggestion of JFresh, who is a character. Someone I do enjoy very much being a friend with, and who is my tinker, and someone you may be seeing on the channel very much so. So, what is War for Sector 9, or Atomic Cell 2 Blues Highway? Well, essentially, it is the continuation of the storyline I have created for the NCR loadout, for the Enclave loadout, in an actual, like, Fallout event form, and taking lessons from Mark, and of course, taking what worked for him and kind of implementing it into my thing, kind of seeing what just works, basically. Now, first off, before anything, obviously, I'm going to go ahead and get this out of the way. There will be factions. Each faction is unique in its own design choices I've kind of gone with and ideas. And each one is, of course, the Brotherhood of Steel, the Appalachian Alliance / Appalachian NCR, Minutemen, and, of course, Wastelander or Scavs, and then, of course, the Enclave. Now, the uniform requirements are somewhat strict, but also not strict. Each one is unique in their own way, and I want to kind of give people who want to adopt these faction colors kind of freedom to kind of go about how they want to be. With the Brotherhood of Steel, it's gray, urban camo, just kind of that whole thing of like, hey, they are easy to identify, they stand out. For the Appalachian Alliance, it's basically what I've been rocking. Basically a khaki top or bottom, or for the different camo types, a variation of green, in this case being M81, Uncle Sam's Flannel, Tiger Stripe, the ultimate fashion statement, or just bog standard olive drab. Essentially, it's to kind of give off that idea that the Appalachian Alliance isn't able to outfit their people as much, but kind of do the whole... But each one is kind of giving off an idea of, hey, this person's this thing. Like with Tiger Stripe kind of being mostly used by 1st Recon, or, that sort of thing. M81, they've been here a while. Or even Olive Drab basically being like, hey, you're a bog standard fresh recruit. Again, kind of wanting to dive deeper into that maybe in future videos, but I don't want to do that here. For the Minutemen, it's just blue, or a variation of blue. The reason I say that is because I met some awesome guys at Atomic Cell, and they legitimately had this whole blue aesthetic, and I absolutely loved it. Shout out to Trench, and of course to the guys of the Minutemen. You guys did rock at the event, and I hope to see you at my event if this ever gets off the ground. For the Wastelanders, really anything that isn't a faction color, just kind of, hey, go out there scavenging, that sort of thing. Now, the Enclave is a different variation. The Enclave is black, or a variation of black. Essentially, I'm going about the idea that the Enclave are this mysterious organization. You'll rarely see people in black, and if you do see them in black, you don't know if they are actually Enclave, or they're a mercenary, or something along that line of, like, they're a bandit or something of that variation. It's basically... The Enclave in this so far is essentially a boogeyman type deal. They're a rumor. They are kind of like Fallout 2, essentially, where they haven't revealed themselves yet, but you do hear whispers about them here and there. Now, the storyline of it all is essentially something else entirely. The storyline is that, hey, it's been 4 years now since the New California Republic Expeditionary Forces, or the NCREF, kind of came to Appalachia, and since they found the pre-war facility of Sector 9. And now they are at, and after, of course, creating the mutual, like, defense and expansion to Appalachia, which is the Appalachian Alliance, with the different settlements and stuff, the different minor factions, they are now at war with this chapter of the Brotherhood. Are they the Midwestern chapter? Are they the East Coast chapter? Nobody knows. All they know is that it's the Brotherhood of Steel, and they are fighting the NCR and the Appalachian Alliance, trying to get to Sector 9, and just attempting to take it over. That is what's going on. It is a full-on war. And each event is essentially a town or a section of the front line, or a town near the section of the front line. And that's going to come into play pretty quick, and that's going to come into play. Now, the objectives I have for this event, or at least I've kind of written out, which, fair warning, I wrote this out. Like, if you were reading the document right now, I'll give you fair warning right now. I started writing this document I'm somewhat referencing here when I got, like, when I stepped into Jay Fresh's truck, and we were heading back to West Tennessee, primarily the areas where Blackwater Marsh and Sector 9 is, the Hornsby area. And I essentially just got out my phone, and I started writing up this document, and I literally, as soon as I got done, I passed the hell out. And then I woke up realizing, holy hell, I actually did better than I expected to, being as tired as I was from a 2-day event. But the other thing, though, is the objectives are going to vary, but this is what I'm going to break down as. For the factions, if you're playing either the Brotherhood or the NCR or the Appalachian Alliance, depending on which variation you want to go with, be it NCR or Appalachian Alliance, with the Minutemen, of course, essentially, if you're on the front line, your job is to keep the Brotherhood from advancing. Your job as the Brotherhood is to advance. However, you can contract out other players, the Scavengers, the Wastelanders, to basically help either push the front line in favor of the Brotherhood or keep the front line stable in favor of the NCR. However, if you are a smart Wastelander and a Scav, you can either backstab one of the two, or you can backstab them both. It is completely up to the player of how they can do that and how charismatic they are, or how good of a bullshitter they are. Now, power armor is going to be an interesting aspect here. Again, understand now, a lot of this is still work in progress and not finalized, so all this is just this is what I put down as ideas. Building power armor is essentially, hey, there are pieces of power armor out in the wasteland, and they are very much so sought after. Much like Fallout 76 and Fallout 4, pieces of power armor can, or just power armor in general, can make or break a battle. If you have power armor, you are a fucking tank. If you are one of the factions who has power armor, that is turning a battle or a firefight in your favor. If you're a Wastelander and you have power armor, well, you just became the biggest, baddest motherfucker in the Wasteland, and you feel fucking invincible until your fusion core runs out. That's a joke. We haven't figured out how to do fusion cores yet. Now, mortar and arty sights, or artillery sights. This is another thing that came from Operation Blackburn 2 from Sector 9. Mortar and artillery sites essentially are areas that have not been controlled and are contested. Depending on who controls these sites, either faction can call in a limited number of strikes on areas that they need, basically call for fire mission type deal. However, they can also once again contract out scavs or wastelanders to go secure these sites either on their behalf, or these wastelanders can claim it for their own and basically use it for themselves. That's how it is in the wasteland. It's like, hey, there's a automated artillery system out there that has a limited number of shells. We need you to go control that, get that under our control. And it's like, okay, sure. Oh, nope, fuck you, fucko, it's now under my control. I now have the cannon. I now got the big guns. Again, it all depends on who controls what. Now, control flags are another thing. The control flags essentially are like conquest and battlefield. Depending on what faction does what, if one faction controls the flag, then hey, the front line has been pushed up. If the other faction controls the flag, the front line has been pushed back. So let's say your Brotherhood trying to push, well, you gotta take this flag in order to control this section of the front line. Your NCR, you need to defend this flag to keep the Brotherhood from advancing. It's literally conquest, essentially. Now, I'm going to bring up the town here. The town is where the regular players can basically take bounties, contracts, quests, what have you. They legitimately are there doing their thing, just kind of milling about, just enjoying themselves, not worrying about the front line that's probably far away from their own problems. Well, if the Brotherhood of Steel controls the front line and it gets close enough to the town, then you essentially have a couple of options. Option 1 is pack your shit and get the fuck out. Option 2, pick up a gun and defend the town alongside the NCR and the Minutemen. Option 3, hunker down in place and pray to God that that the Brotherhood doesn't kill you. Or option 4, and here's the nuance here, if you are sympathetic to the Brotherhood, you can do all in your power to basically help them out by killing the defenders or disrupting their defenses. There's that nuance there. Now, retaking the town is an option depending on, how many people are left. If you got the numbers and you can, retake the town. And if the flag is not raised by the end, that town is now under control of the Brotherhood and has been lost to the defending faction. However, if the retaking forces, the counterattacking forces basically take the flag and raise it, then voila, the Brotherhood's been kicked out of the town, and hallelujah, a town has not been lost to the Brotherhood. And this is where the faction mechanics kind of come into play. Because again, each one is... For every event, not all these factions are going to be at the event, I'm just going to say that now. But for the factions, each one is different. And depending on how it's done and how they're executed, could be good or could be bad. But basically, if you are the commander of the Appalachian Alliance or the NCR, your job is essentially not only to help keep the peace in the town, but also to keep the Brotherhood of Steel from gaining any ground. You literally are basically told, hey, hold the line. But if you know about some objectives or some valuable technology or power pieces, you can send out First Recon or whoever out to basically find out about it. Scout out, and any you gain gives you an advantage against the advancing Brotherhood. For the Brotherhood of Steel, it's the same as the NCR, except, they will hoard the technology. So, any technology they deem as valuable will be basically hoarded. However, if you're a wastelander who has found some valuable technology, you can take it to the Brotherhood and basically get some loot in return, or you can gain some favor with the Brotherhood. Again, if you're sympathetic to the Brotherhood and you don't want to support the NCR or the Appalachian Alliance. Now, wastelanders and scavs, these guys basically survive, loot, shoot, profit. That is essentially the wastelander. And again, you can decide to be neutral or be a third party between the warring factions of Appalachia. For the Enclave, stealth and subterfuge is your MO. You literally are doing your best to kind of help weaken the two factions and kind of prepare for the large Enclave force to basically come in. So, if you adopt the role of the Enclave, you basically you're doing your best to weaken both sides. You're doing your best to be unseen. You're doing your best to kind of prepare the area for the rest of the Enclave to kind of come out and be like, surprise, fuckos, we've been here the entire time. And that's just kind of the Enclave in a nutshell. Minutemen are essentially allies with the NCR, and they are, again, helping keep the peace. So they can basically come to the NCR and basically say, hey, we have a settlement that needs our help. The NCR can decide, hey, we can't send people, or hey, we can send people. Or they can join the NCR in the defense of the front line, just kind of trying to keep the Brotherhood from advancing on the town. Or you could see Minutemen patrolling the town, keeping things civil, alongside the sheriff and NCR military police. Now, again, we all know about sector captures because this is the gameplay mechanics section of the video. Sector captures, mortar and artillery positions, I've already explained those. But bounties and contracts, that's where things get kind of fun, because at Atomic Cell, and yes, I'm going to say this now, bounties and contracts will have a hard fucking limit, unlike what happened at Atomic Cell, where I got 28 bounties on me at that event. Literally 28 bounties. 8 one day, 8 day 1, 20 day 2. So in this case, bounties are a hard limit. You cannot put a bounty on someone unless you have 100 caps or more. And if you do put a bounty on someone, you cannot put it again on that same person until an hour has passed. So that's the limit on bounties. Contracts, on the other hand, contracts can be made by the NPCs or by the factions. A good example here. Let's say that you're an NCR commander and you know of a place that may or may not hold something that could help the front line or give you an advantage over the Brotherhood. Well, you could put out a contract in the town, and a Wastelander could come see the contract and be like, hey, I want to take this contract, and you go do that. And again, if it's an artillery position, you can basically keep the area secured for the NCR, or the Appalachian Alliance, or the Brotherhood. Or, like I said before, you can be that opportunistic son of a bitch, and you can take that shit for yourself. It all depends on how things go. But that is essentially contracts in a nutshell. You can get rewarded, or you can be a greedy son of a bitch and take it for yourself. Depending on the contract, of course. Now, power armor. Juggernauts. This is where things get fun, because power armor are essentially walking tanks. And while, yes, you can disable them for a hot minute with regular firearms, with key points on their body, you need a weapon that is going to kill them, or at least take them out, send them back to respawn, essentially. If you are using an anti-material rifle, AMR, essentially 50 cal and bigger, and yes, it has to be essentially a 50 caliber replica or bigger. You can't go around with an M4 claiming it's a fucking 50 cal. It's got to be a physical anti-material rifle. Or let's say you got an anti-tank weapon, rocket launchers, that sort of thing. Those are going to be the things that can take out a power armor jug or power armor units. With those in hand, you can take them out and you can help turn the tide of battle. The only problem is, if you have a set of power armor and you come across someone with an AMR or an AT weapon, well, bucko, you are happily up a creek without a river. Now, weapon rules are something else that I have not done yet. Those are still in works. NPCs, I've already talked about it, but this is where I'm going to kind of get into a little bit more about the NPCs. Merchants, obvious. Mayor, that's a different one. But basically, you can get quests from either the mayor or the merchants, from the commanders, and of course from the sheriffs or the MPs. Now, the town gossip is one I want to kind of touch on before I go and touch upon the sheriff and the MPs, and then of course the commanders. Town gossips are basically like the ghoul from Freeside. If you give them caps, they tell you about a rumor, or probably some interesting loot being spotted out in the wasteland, or maybe a quest. It kind of all comes down to, hey, what's going on with it? Who's there? What's that? It's that sort of thing. And it could be true, it could be bunk, or it could be just one big old wild goose chase from the town gossip. Now, sheriffs and MPs, this is where I'm taking a play out of Sector 9's book. Sheriffs and MPs are going to patrol the town, make sure, there are no troublemakers, nothing happens, make example out of troublemakers, that sort of thing. However, they will also act as in-game admins, or refs, should the need arise. Again, this is something I took from Sector 9's playbook with the guys who do play with us, but also act as in-game refs when the need arises. That way they can make sure that, hey, situations are taken care of and nothing bad happens. This is why I love Sector 9 and their events sometimes, because, hey, they know what they're doing and they do actually make it good. So, Foggy, Mike, you guys are awesome, and I'm happy that I hope I'm able to do this right and basically use this, what you've done in this event. Now, commanders are another thing altogether. Again, I've talked about the fact of these guys basically make sure that the front line is either maintained or pushed. They do, of course, like I said, offer contracts to Wastelanders. And that is essentially what their role is. If you are a commander, your job is, again, not only directing your forces to keep the Brotherhood from advancing, or if you're with the Brotherhood, advancing, but you can offer out contracts to Wastelanders. Or, if you need to, put bounties out on high-value targets, or even hit contracts on high-value targets. It all depends on the risk and the reward factor of who they are putting a contract out on and what you're going to do. And that's about it. Legitimately, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. That's all I have. I know that it seems like I was rambling. It's because I kind of am. This is the bare bones explanation of what I want to do for my own Fallout event. Now, say what you will about me, but at least I try to kind of be consistent, or at least in this case, try and do something at least, or at least try and get something going to a degree. But either way, that's about it for me, ladies and gentlemen. If you guys have any suggestions for rules, for quests, for weapon rules, or anything else in particular, please let me know in the comment section down below. I know Mark's going to give this document a look over. I'm kind of scared of what he's going to think about it, honestly. But to those who actually legitimately want to help me with this document, hit me up on Discord, and I will give you probably access to the document. I know I'm going to talk to the guys at Sector 9. I know Foggy and his brother have made events. They've done awesome with those events, and hopefully they can help me out with that as well. But either way, as always, ladies and gentlemen, I've been AirsoftAL, Alex, and pray to God that I can actually make this happen, because I've been wanting a Fallout event at Sector 9 for a while. I've only ever done one, and I hope to God I can make this happen. Till next time.